The broken girl Mason walked slowly through the cold metal halls of the wrecked ship. His boots made small echoes in the darkness. He carried a small light that showed pieces of broken walls and old crates. It smelled of rust and old fear. He had come here because of a weak distress signal. He thought he might find survivors, or maybe nothing at all, but he did not expect to find her. At the end of a narrow corridor, he stopped. His light fell on something small, a person, huddled against the wall. She looked like she had tried to hide there. Her skin was pale, almost silver. Long hair fell over her face like a curtain. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and her thin arms were marked with dark bruises. For a moment, Mason thought she might be dead, but then she lifted her head. The large, bright eyes stared back at him, filled with fear, and something else dashed hope. He did not move closer yet. He knew better than to rush a frightened soul. Instead, he knelt slowly so he would not look so tall. He set the light on the floor. Its beam spread across her face, and he saw how young she was, maybe no more than 20 human years. "Hello," he said in a low voice. "I'm Mason. I'm here to help." She did not answer. Her thin fingers pulled at the edge of her sleeve, trying to cover the worst bruises. Mason looked at the broken cuffs still locked around her wrists. They were old slave restraints. His jaw tightened. He had seen this before: innocent lives, stolen by traders who called people property. "I will not hurt you," he said. "You are safe now." Her lips parted. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. She swallowed and tried again. My body," she whispered, voice so soft he almost did not hear. "It is useful. Please, take me with you." Mason felt his chest tighten. Those words, spoken like a sad promise, told him everything. She did not expect rescue. She expected to be claimed. He shook his head slowly. "No," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "I'm not going to take you for your body. You are a person, not a thing." She blinked. A tear slipped down her cheek. She looked confused, as if she did not understand what he meant. He reached into his pack and pulled out a silver blanket. Carefully, he set it near her but did not touch her. "Here," he said. "It's warm. You can wrap it around you." She stared at the blanket. Then, slowly, she picked it up and held it close. Her hands were shaking. Mason stayed on his knees, waiting. He knew trust could not be forced. It had to grow, even if it took time. "What is your name?" he asked softly. Her eyes dropped to the floor. "Arya," she whispered. "Arya," Mason repeated. "That is a good name." She lifted her eyes to him. You will not sell me?" "No," he said. "Never." "Then why?" She stopped, unable to finish the question. "Because you deserve help," Mason said simply. "You deserve freedom." She looked so tired, like her small body could not hold her spirit any longer. She leaned back against the cold wall. "Can you walk?" Mason asked. She tried to stand. Her legs gave out, and she fell back with a soft cry. Mason reached out, but stopped himself from grabbing her. Instead, he held out his hands, palms up, so she could choose. Slowly, carefully, she placed her hands in his. Her fingers were cold and thin as twigs. "I will carry you," he said. She closed her eyes, like she was bracing for pain. But when he lifted her into his arms, he only held her gently. She weighed almost nothing. As he carried her through the halls, she whispered again, "My body is useful." Mason's voice was quiet, but strong. "No," he said. "Your life is what matters." She did not answer, but as they reached his ship, she laid her head against his chest, and for the first time, she let herself believe she might really be safe. Behind them, in the shadows of the wreck, something unseen watched them go. Asterisk the offer. She cannot believe Mason carried Arya into his ship, a small vessel called the Sparrow. It was not fancy, but it was clean and warm. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss, sealing out the darkness of the wreck. He moved carefully, worried she might panic if he moved fast. Arya lay still in his arms, her eyes half closed, as if she did not believe any of this was real. He took her to the medical bay, a narrow room with a soft bed and a set of old but working scanners. Gently, he set her down. She tried to sit up, but he raised his hand. "It's all right," he said. "You don't have to move." Arya looked around the room, her gaze darting to every corner as if searching for hidden chains. "What will you do with me?" she asked, her voice thin. Mason shook his head. "Nothing. You are free now." Her brows pulled together. "Free?" Yes, he said calmly. No one owns you. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. It was as if the idea was too big for her to hold. He turned to the cabinet and pulled out a medical scanner. I need to check your injuries, he said. She flinched. Please, don't put anything in me. Mason looked into her eyes, feeling the sadness so deep he could not measure it. I won't, he promised. This just scans. It does not touch you. She did not answer, but she did not stop him when he passed the scanner over her body. A screen lit up with soft beeps. He saw bruises, malnourishment, and old scars. No broken bones, though. That was a small relief. You need food, he said, and rest. Arya looked down at her hands. If I am free, can I go? Mason nodded. Slowly, yes, you can go anywhere you wish. She raised her eyes to his face, searching for a trap. You will not sell me later? No, he said firmly. I do not buy or sell people. She pulled the silver blanket tight around her shoulders. Then, why did you take me? Mason set the scanner aside. He thought about the answer for a long moment. Because you were alone, he said softly, and no one deserves to die alone. Arya turned her head away. For a moment, Mason thought she would stay silent, but then her shoulders began to shake. She was crying, though no sound came out. He did not touch her. Instead, he sat in the chair across from the bed, giving her space to feel what she needed to feel. After some time, she wiped her eyes with the edge of the blanket. I don't understand you, she whispered. You don't have to, Mason said. Just rest. Hours passed. Arya slept in fits, waking with small cries each time. She seemed afraid to close her eyes for long. Mason stayed nearby, working on repairs to the ship's engines, but always within earshot. When she woke again, he brought her a small tray of food, simple broth and soft bread. She stared at it with suspicion. Is this payment? She asked. No, he said. It's just food. Her hands shook as she picked up the spoon. She ate slowly, as if waiting for someone to snatch it away. You can have more, Mason told her when she finished. As much as you need. Arya looked down at her empty bowl. Her voice was so small, he almost didn't hear it. No one has ever given me food for nothing. Mason leaned forward. Then it's time someone did. Later, while she rested, Mason walked to the cockpit. He sat in the pilot's chair and looked out at the stars. His ship was floating in a quiet sector of space, hidden for the moment. But he knew it wouldn't last. He tapped the console. A message flashed on the screen. Unclaimed property detected. Return immediately or face penalty. His jaw clenched. He knew exactly who had sent it, slavers who still believed Arya belonged to them. He closed the message without replying. Back in the medical bay, Arya sat up when he entered. You can leave me somewhere, she said. I don't want you to get in trouble. Mason shook his head. I will not leave you. But they will come, she whispered. They always come. He met her gaze, steady and calm. Then let them come, he said. I will not give you back. For the first time, a spark of something like hope flickered in her eyes. But in the darkness outside the ship, 3 silent beacons were already moving closer. The hunters had found them. The hunters arrived. Mason woke early, before the ship's lights had brightened. He checked the sensors first, as he always did, but this time, the screen showed something he had hoped not to see. 3 ships were moving closer, small, fast, and built for capture, not rescue. He knew their shape, the long black holes with red markings, slavers. He ran a hand over his face and took a slow breath. He had known this would happen. He just hadn't thought it would happen so soon. In the medical bay, Arya was sitting up, her blanket around her shoulders. She looked smaller today, as if the hope she'd found was already fading. When Mason entered, she lifted her eyes, searching his face for answers. You look worried, she said in a quiet voice. He nodded. They found us. Arya pressed a hand to her mouth. For a moment, she looked like she might be sick. I can leave, she said quickly. If I go now, they will not hurt you. No, Mason said firmly. This is not your fault. Tears filled her eyes. But it is, she whispered. They came because of me. He knelt in front of her so she had to look into his eyes. They came because they are cowards who take what does not belong to them. That is not your burden to carry. She swallowed, her throat bobbing. What will you do? She asked. Mason stood and picked up his communicator. I will talk to them. He walked to the cockpit and pressed a button to open the channel. The screen flickered. A man appeared, a slaver commander with sharp eyes and a cruel smile. "Captain Mason." The man said smoothly, "You have something that belongs to us. She belongs to no one." Mason replied calmly. The commander laughed. "You know, that is not true. Return the property, and we will let you go in peace." Mason's jaw tightened. "No." The commander tilted his head. "Are you sure you want to make this hard? She is only a tool, a thing, nothing more." Mason's voice dropped to a low, cold tone. "If you call her that again, I will make sure you regret it." The commander's smile faded. "Very well. You have made your choice." The screen went dark. Mason turned and found Arya standing in the doorway. Her eyes were wide with fear. "You should not have done that," she whispered. "I will never let them take you," Mason said. "But you cannot fight them," she said, her voice cracking. "They have more weapons, more ships." Mason stepped closer. "Then I will find another way." She shook her head, tears falling. "You don't understand. They will kill you." "Listen to me," Mason said, his voice steady. "You are not a burden. You are not a tool. You are a person, and I will not hand you over." She looked at him as if she did not believe such kindness could be real. Outside, the slaver ships began to circle the Sparrow. Mason watched the radar. Red dots moved closer and closer. Arya clutched the edge of a chair. "What can we do?" Mason took a deep breath. "I will try to talk to them again. If that fails, we run." "Run?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," he said. "But first, you must promise me something." "What? If anything happens?" "You will get into the escape pod," Mason said. "You will not wait for me." Arya shook her head. "I will not leave you. You have to," Mason insisted. "Your life is more important." Tears filled her eyes again. "No one has ever said that to me." "Well," he said, trying to smile, "it's true." A voice crackled over the ship's speakers. "This is your last chance, Captain. Surrender the girl." Mason did not answer. He looked at Arya and saw how she trembled, but behind her fear, something else glowed, something strong. In that moment, she stepped closer and lifted her chin. "If we run, I will help." Mason nodded. "Good, because I will need you." Her eyes widened. You trust me with my life," Mason said simply. Outside, the slaver ships began to charge their weapons. The screens flashed a red warning. Arya took a shaky breath. For the first time, she felt something she had never known before. She was not useless. She was not weak. She was part of something worth fighting for. And as the first blast rocked the hull, she knew she would rather face danger with Mason than hide alone in the dark ever again. Asterisk, the escape plan ship shook again as another blast hit the outer shields. The lights flickered, then came back. Arya clutched the chair beside Mason, her breath coming fast. "Are the shields strong enough?" she asked. "For a little while," Mason said, "but not forever." He tapped the controls quickly, bringing up maps of the area. There were asteroid fields nearby, dangerous to fly through, but good for hiding. "We need to reach these rocks," he said, pointing to the screen. "If we get there, they won't be able to follow us easily." Arya swallowed. "You think we can get that far?" "We have to try," Mason said. Outside, the slaver ships spread out, forming a tight circle around the Sparrow. Mason knew they were trying to block every way out. He turned to Arya. "I need your help." Her eyes widened. "Me? What can I do?" "You can do more than you think," he said calmly. He showed her a small panel on the wall. "This controls the decoy signals. I'm going to pilot us forward. When I say now, you press this button. It will send fake readings to their ships. It might give us a few seconds." Arya nodded slowly, though her hands shook. "I understand." Mason placed his hand over hers for a moment. "You are braver than you know." She looked down, her heart beating so hard she felt dizzy. No one had ever trusted her with anything before. Mason returned to the pilot's chair. He took a deep breath and gripped the controls. "All systems ready," he called. Arya stood by the panel, watching him. The slaver commander's voice came over the radio again. "Last warning. Surrender or be destroyed." Mason did not reply. He looked at Arya, gave a small nod, then pressed the engine ignition. The Sparrow leaped forward. Engines roaring. The slaver ships opened fire, red beams slashing past them. The shield sparked and groaned under the impact. "Hold on," Mason shouted. Arya grabbed a metal bar to steady herself. The ship dove toward the nearest gap in the slaver line. A warning. Alarm screamed. Mason's screen showed a lock-on signal. Missiles were coming. Get ready, he called. 3, 2, 1. Now, Arya slammed her hand onto the button. A bright pulse of energy burst from the Sparrow. For a moment, every enemy ship's sensors went blind. Mason pushed the engines to full power. The ship shot forward, racing into the darkness. Behind them, the slavers fired blindly. Missing again and again, Arya stared at the screen, hardly breathing. It's working, she whispered. Just for a moment, Mason said, but sometimes, a moment is enough. Ahead, the asteroid field loomed a maze of spinning rocks and hidden shadows. We're going in, Mason said. Arya's eyes grew wide. Won't we crash? Not if we're careful, he said. The first asteroid passed so close she thought she could touch it. Mason steered around it, his hands steady. Another blast struck the shields, weaker this time. The slaver ships were trying to track them again. They're coming back, Arya said, her voice tight. I know, Mason said. But in here, they can't fire freely. They might hit the rocks for long minutes. They twisted and turned through the field. Mason focused only on the path ahead. Arya watched the sensors, calling out when a large asteroid drifted too close. You're doing well, Mason told her. She looked at him, surprised. No one had ever told her that before. Finally, they reached a cluster of giant rocks where the shadows were deep. Mason powered down most systems, leaving only life support. The ship fell silent. Are we hiding? Arya asked. Yes, Mason said. With any luck, they'll think we were destroyed or lost. She moved closer to the front window, watching the stars. Do you think they will leave? She whispered. I don't know, Mason admitted. But we have done everything we can. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The darkness around them felt almost peaceful compared to the battle. Arya turned to look at him. Her voice was small but steady. Thank you, she said. For what? For not using me, she whispered. For seeing me as more. Mason felt something tighten in his chest. He nodded once. You are more. You always were. But far behind them, hidden in the darkness, one slaver ship did not retreat. Its sensors searched the rocks, patient as a hunting animal. The danger was not over yet. The betrayal ship was quiet. The only sound was the slow hum of life support. Arya sat by the front window, watching the stars move behind the drifting asteroids. Mason sat in the pilot's chair, his eyes on the scanner. They are still searching, he said quietly. Arya swallowed. How long will they look? As long as it takes, Mason said. His voice was calm, but she could hear the worry beneath it. She pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders. For the first time, she wondered if she had made a mistake by staying, if she had left alone. Maybe Mason would have been safe. She turned to look at him. You could still give me back, she whispered. Mason did not move. I will never do that. Her eyes filled with tears. Then they will kill you. I know, Mason said. But some things are worth risking everything. Hours passed. Mason did not leave his post. He watched the scanner as the red blip moved slowly among the rocks. One ship was still hunting them. Finally, he stood and walked to the back of the ship. He needed to check the engines. If they needed to run again, he had to be sure the ship would fly. Arya sat alone, her heart heavy. She thought about the other slaver ships, about all the times she had been called property, about all the hands that had grabbed her. And now, because she was here, Mason's life was in danger. She wiped her eyes. Then she stood. She moved to the communication console and touched the button Mason had warned her never to press. A small red light blinked. Her hand hovered over it. If she turned herself in, the slavers might let Mason go. Maybe he would survive. Maybe he would forget her. Her hand trembled. She tried to convince herself it was the right thing. I am nothing, she thought. Better to save him. Slowly, she pressed the button. A voice crackled from the speaker, cold, familiar. This is Commander Varric. Identify yourself. Arya closed her eyes. Her voice shook. This is the girl, she whispered. I am here. Pause. Then a slow, please laugh. Very good. Prepare to be retrieved. The signal ended. Mason returned seconds later. He looked at her, saw the blinking light, and his face went pale. What did you do? He asked, his voice soft but sharp. Arya could not meet his eyes. I called them, she whispered. If I go back, they will let you go. Mason shook his head, pain flickering across his face. No, Arya. It is better this way, she said. Tears slid down her cheeks. You do not deserve to die because of me. He stepped closer, his voice tight. Do you think your life is worth less than mine? She pressed her hands to her face. Yes, she cried. Mason's chest ached. He reached out and gently pulled her hands away. Listen to me, he said, his voice low and steady. You are not nothing. You never were. But outside, bright lights were already shining through the cracks in the rocks. The slaver ship was closing in. Mason turned and ran to the controls. He started the engines, but before he could launch, a sharp voice came over the speakers. Do not run, Captain. We have weapons locked. You will surrender the girl, or you will both die. Arya stepped forward, her face pale. Please, she whispered, just let me go. Let me be useful one last time. Mason turned to her. His eyes were dark with sorrow. I will never see you as something to be used, he said. Outside, the slaver ship moved closer. A docking tube extended toward their hatch. Arya closed her eyes. She had hoped Mason would hate her for this choice. It would have been easier. But he still looked at her as if she was worth saving. The hatch clanged. As the tube locked onto the ship, heavy footsteps echoed through the thin metal walls. Mason stepped between her and the door. Stay behind me, he said. Arya shook her head. They will kill you. Then they will. Mason said quietly, but I will not stand aside. The door opened with a hiss. A tall man stepped inside, armored and cruel-faced. He looked from Mason to Arya and smiled slowly. At last, he said, the property returns. Arya felt her knees weaken, but Mason stepped forward, his voice a cold promise. She is not property. The commander raised a blade and pressed it to Mason's throat. Arya gasped, if you want him to live. The man sneered, you will come with me now. Her heart pounded. Mason's eyes met hers. Steady and calm. Don't, he whispered. Tears blurred her vision. She could not let him die. She took a shaking step forward. And in that moment, she realized she would rather be taken again than watch him fall. Asterisk the last stand. Arya's breath came in shallow gasps. She took one step forward, her hands raised in surrender. The commander's cruel eyes glowed with victory. That's right, he said softly. Come here. Make this easy. Mason did not move. The blade pressed against his throat, but his voice stayed calm. Arya, he said, you don't have to do this. Her voice trembled. I can't let you die. You were never meant to save me by giving yourself up, Mason said. That is not freedom. The commander laughed. How touching, he mocked. You think you can change what she is. You can't. She was made to be useful, to be property. Mason's jaw tightened. You're wrong. Arya closed her eyes. For a moment, her mind was full of all the old memories, cold cages, rough hands. The word property whispered again and again, but Mason's voice cut through the darkness. You are more than what they told you, he said. Her eyes opened. Something inside her heart, something she thought was dead, started to burn. The commander shoved Mason back against the wall. He grabbed Arya's arm, pulling her close. She did not fight, but when she looked at Mason, her eyes were no longer empty. He gave her a small nod. She understood. In one fast motion, she stepped aside, twisting her arm free. At the same moment, Mason moved. He slammed his fist into the commander's wrist, knocking the blade loose. It clattered to the floor. The commander snarled and lunged for it, but Arya kicked it away. She moved faster than she ever had before. Mason grabbed the man's shoulder and pulled him backward. They struggled, crashing into the wall. Sparks flew as their fight knocked wires loose. Arya's heart pounded. She looked around and saw the control panel Mason had shown her earlier, the emergency override. She sprinted to it. Her hands hovered over the buttons. I can do this, she told herself. I am not weak. Mason struggled to hold the commander back. The man was strong, fueled by rage. He threw Mason hard against the wall. Mason fell to his knees. Gasping for breath, Arya saw it happen. Her fear became something sharper anger. She slammed her hand down on the override button. A loud alarm wailed through the ship. Red lights flashed. Steel doors began to close, sealing off the docking tube. The commander's eyes widened in shock. What have you done? Arya's voice was steady. I am not yours. The doors slammed shut with a heavy bang. The docking tube detached, sending the slaver ship drifting backward. Mason pulled himself to his feet. He met Arya's gaze with a look she would never forget, pride. But the commander was still inside. He lunged for her again, his hand closing around her throat. Arya gasped, her vision blurring. Mason roared and tackled the man from behind. They fell hard. The commander tried to reach for his hidden blade, but Mason was faster. He pinned the man's arm to the floor. "Arya," Mason shouted. "The airlock." She coughed, trying to clear her head. Her eyes fell on the panel near the back wall. "The emergency airlock controls. I can end this," she thought. She staggered to the panel. The commander saw her and laughed, even as Mason held him down. "You think you are strong?" He spat. "You will always be nothing." Arya's hand hovered over the button. Her fingers shook. Then she took a deep breath and pressed it. A deep rumble filled the ship. The airlock door opened with a roar of escaping air. Alarm screamed. The commander's smile vanished as the vacuum pulled him backward. Mason held onto a support bar with one hand and grabbed Arya's arm with the other. The commander clawed at the floor, his eyes wild with hate, but there was nothing to hold onto. With one last furious scream, he was sucked out into the darkness of space. The airlock door slammed shut again. Silence fell. Only the soft hum of emergency systems remained. Arya fell to her knees. Mason slowly lowered himself beside her, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Mason lifted his hand and touched her shoulder. "You saved us," he whispered. Arya looked up, her eyes wide. "I did. You did," Mason said. "You were brave." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were not from fear. Outside, the last slaver ship turned and vanished into hyperspace. The hunt was over. Inside the Sparrow, Arya closed her eyes and finally felt something she had never known before: freedom. The choice she finally made. Makith's ship was quiet after the danger passed. For a long time, Mason and Arya sat side by side on the floor, listening to their own breathing. Arya felt like her heart was still racing. She kept expecting the alarms to start again, or for the commander to appear in the doorway with cold eyes. But nothing happened. The silence felt almost too big to trust. Mason turned to look at her. His face was tired but calm. "You did it," he said softly. Arya swallowed. I thought I would be scared." He shook his head. "Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It means you are." She looked down at her hands, remembering the feel of the button under her fingers, the moment she had chosen to fight instead of hide. "I don't feel like property anymore," she whispered. Mason's eyes warmed. "That's because you never were." After a while, he stood and helped her to her feet. The medical bay was a mess, the floor littered with broken panels and tools. "I'll need to fix this," he said, trying to smile. Arya looked around, then back at him. "Can I help?" His eyebrows lifted. "You want to?" She nodded. I want to do something. To learn." Mason felt a small spark of hope. He had saved many people before, traders caught in accidents, explorers stranded on distant moons. But he had never seen someone change like this. He set a small toolbox on the counter and gestured for her to join him. "I'd be glad to have your help," he said. They spent hours working side by side. Arya learned how to fit wires back into place and test circuits every time she finished a task. Mason said, "Good work," and she felt something warm bloom in her chest. By the time they were done, the ship was whole again. Mason set the last tool aside and turned to her. "There's something I need to ask you." Arya felt her heart flutter. "What is it?" "You are free," he said gently. "Truly free now. If you want, I can take you anywhere, any planet, any station. No one will follow you anymore." She looked at him, her hands twisting together. She had thought about this moment many times, dreamed of it when she was locked in a cage. The chance to go wherever she wanted. But now that it was real, she realized something she hadn't expected. Freedom wasn't just leaving, it was choosing. "Where would you go if you were me?" she asked in a small voice. Mason smiled a little. "I can't answer that. Only you know." She looked down, thinking she could find her people if any were left. She could try to build a life far from anyone who knew her past. But when she imagined stepping off the ship alone, her chest felt cold. Slowly, she lifted her head. Can I stay?" Mason blinked. "Stay? With you?" she said quickly. Her cheeks turned pink. "Not because you saved me, because I feel safe here. Because you see me as a person." His eyes softened. "If you stay, it will be as my equal, not as cargo, not as a tool." She nodded. "That's what I want." Mason held out his hand. Then it settled. Arya looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she placed hers in it. feeling warmth and a strange lightness she had never known. Later, as they sat together in the cockpit, Mason guided the Sparrow away from the asteroid field. "Where should we go first?" he asked. Arya looked out at the stars. So many places she had never seen. Some were beautiful, she said softly. "Somewhere I can learn who I am." Mason nodded. "I think that's a good plan." They watched the stars move past the windows, silent and endless. Arya did not know what her future would be, but for the first time, she felt like it belonged to her alone. She was not property, not broken, not something to be used. She was free, and she had chosen this path herself.